Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel yet again. I'm going to be talking about a very popular topic at the minute. We're going to be talking about this self-improvement world. We're going to be talking about all of the factors and consequences of it, and why as a whole, there might be a strong argument that it needs to stop. We've got our horse in the background, we're in the car, and I'm going to be talking you guys through this interesting concept. So if he disrupts us, don't worry about it too much. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about self-improvement, a concept that I do overall agree with in its pure sense. The sense that, look, nobody's perfect and there's stuff that we can do to improve our life, make our dream lives come true, and improve our efficiency. That is a concept and a mindset that I do fundamentally agree with. But we're seeing a world now where this, for a lot of people, is becoming their everything. It's actually becoming an unhealthy obsession. You remember about 5-10 years ago where we had a lot of people, and it still is the case now really, addicted to going to the gym. You know, they could not go to the gym. It's kind of like that self-improvement stuff that we're seeing now, and the terminology and the thought processes behind it is something that's just absolutely crazy the more and more you think about it. So we have seen so many popular influences in this space popping up, mainly for men. I am a man, so I'm going to talk about the situation that it is in for men. Look at the influence that we've had pop up for men. A few spring to mind. Obviously, Andrew Tate, someone like, let's say, Alex Hormozi, and so many of these different guys. From all of these people, there are some core fundamental teachings that I do agree with. And of course, some that I do not. I think anybody with a logical and rational mind can listen to someone's opinion in its pure form and what they say, and take some positives and negatives from that. Now, what a lot of these people who buy into this message do is they have this concept of value, and we hear this all the time. It's the most ridiculous concept, right? All this high value man, high value woman stuff. It's so detached from the real world that these people need to get a grip. And it's actually quite funny because I've been speaking about this really for about a year. I remember being sat in the sunshine on the bike, a bit warmer than where we are today, so why we're in the car. If it was nice and warm, I'd be on the bike again. I remember being sat in the sunshine last year, summertime, blazing sun, speaking about the fact that there's a lot of these guys who, even if they were rich, even if they did this and this and this, they still wouldn't be perceived as attractive. And that is the truth. I do not disagree with that, even to this day. There are a lot of guys who have this idea that if they get money or if they do this, then they'll be attractive, they'll be perceived well. And you know what? That is not true. I just made a video a minute ago where I spoke about why we need to stop villainizing the 9 to 5. And I say this as somebody who runs my own business, right? We need to actually accredit and award people who do these sorts of jobs to keep the world running. And the same thing's true with all of this content about self-improvement. What you see happen is two things in this space, and neither of them I think are good. Again, there are some positives that do develop from this, like people being empowered to start businesses, people being empowered to go to the gym, people strengthening their connections. But what you see a lot of the time is two side effects. You see one side effect which affects a lot of people, which is the feeling that they're not doing well enough. For example, you've got a figure like Andrew Tate banging on about the fact that you need to get rich, or someone else talking about their $1 million or $10 million business that they started at age 20, 21, 22, 23, or all of these girls that you should have, or these connections and this and that. And look, the reality of life for a lot of people aged 21 to 5, let's say, they're figuring it out. And I think really, if we're being fair, we need to give more credit to people figuring it out. You know, there's people who are more confident in this process of figuring it out for a number of reasons. One of them can be that they've got a good basis, and what I mean by that is quite simple. If you have a think about it, some people are naturally a bit more social, naturally or organically have a good circle of friends, good looks, let's say, so on and so forth. And those people don't really tend, or from what I've seen, don't so much struggle with these concepts. But imagine if you're somebody on the opposite end of it. Again, we're talking about this now, currently, from the positive spectrum of it. But imagine if you are somebody who's sat on the negative end of it, right? And you're in a position where you don't have these positives, you don't have these natural positives. You're probably going to feel like somebody who's quite behind on some of these fronts. So if you don't have a big circle of friends, if you don't have a girlfriend, or then one effect of this mindset is that you might think, okay, well, I'm massively behind. And that makes these people feel very, very bad. I don't have a Lamborghini. I don't even have a car. And I'm 22. I'm massively behind. It's not that true. It's not really that simple either. It's a very, very nuanced conversation, because life is very, very subjective. And I've personally known people who have been negatively impacted by the belief that they should have this, this, and this by a certain age. In reality, like I say, this is not true. This could not be further from the truth. It's very subjective. And then you have the other camp of people who seem to believe that there is some inherent value in some arbitrary principles. So people like, I have a business, so I'm high value. I have a certain car or something. It's crazy. It is actually crazy. And it's so detached from how the world works. It's unbelievable. It really is. Now, like I say, to kind of touch back on the initial point, I agree with trying to do the best for yourself. And I'm never going to disagree with that. I believe that you should hold yourself to good standards. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with taking messages that side with that. But what we are seeing now is people who believe that because they have this and this and this, they should be liked. Should be. It creates a base level expectation being the key word, of what they think they should have. For example, we see certain influencers say, I should have this, and then I have it. So now I should be likable, or I should be, or I follow this influence. It's not the real world. It's not the real world. And if you do what some of these influencers tell you to do, you will not have the same results. You don't have the fame, you might not have the looks, you don't have the money. So, and even if you did, right, do you want to be exactly like these people? Probably not. The truth about value, and I said this in a video, like I say, last summer, quite a few, value is not self-analysed. It's something which can only be perceived through the eyes of others. And that might sound weird, and it might go against everything that these influencers have told you, but let me explain what I mean, right? Being valuable as a person is a measure that other people associate with you and put on you, rather than what you can attribute to yourself. It's about as clever as me saying, I want to price this piece of gold at $10 million when the market value is $3,300. Why do you think it should be 10 million? Because I think it's high value. Well, that's not how it works. That's not how marketing works. That's not how basic market economics work. And that might sound very detached from what I'm speaking about here, but it's not. How likable you are by other people is determined by them, not you. You can do things to sway that, you can do things to influence that, but it's ultimately decided on by them. So this concept that do this and then you're high, it's a load of nonsense, and it really is seemingly corrupting the mindsets of a lot of people. And it seems to be having two major impacts, right? So we have the people who think that they're not working hard enough, and then we get people who are either depressed because they don't think they're good enough, which is a very, very silly thing to say. Life is so subjective. We get the people who think that they are better than everybody, or that they are entitled to a certain something because they think they've worked on themselves enough, and that's just not how the real world works. Again, subjective. It's just a crazy situation that we find ourselves in. And my finishing point that I want to obviously end on here is that this is all calculated in the real world without any assumption. This is basically an internet argument. And I swear, these people who believe in these sorts of concepts to the levels of depth that they do need to get out into the real world and have some real world interactions. Now, I think this mindset and this belief chain is particularly potent in a group of people for whom it is easy to ascribe to or subscribe to. So, for example, if your life is already going quite well and you're a fairly normal person, you wouldn't really buy into this sort of stuff that much because it wouldn't matter that much. You already know if your life's going well or not. And then imagine being at McDonald's and saying you think you're high value. It just doesn't make sense, right? you do the work and you just hope for good results. I think this should be done for yourself, not for other people. I think the level of value ascribed to a person will be decided on by other people. How much does stuff not work when you're there? How much do people miss you? How much influence do you have over yourself, over other people, over the world? And we live in a world now where people are basically, I don't even know how to describe it. They're viewing life as a game that it isn't. Life is like a game. I really do believe that. You know, you should really be trying to level up your character in a lot of ways. But now we have people who believe certain just complete fallacies due to the rise of this self-improvement concept, right? Self-improvement isn't, for a lot of these guys who believe in this, self-improvement will be getting some social skills. Self-improvement would be going out on a date with a girl once, ever. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But when people take this message the wrong way, this self-improvement message, and tie it into something where it's not going to have positive impacts on their life, they're going to either feel massively behind, or they're going to feel that, I don't know, Andrew Tate or somebody said something, so it must be true, and it's not how the world works. Look, I don't really have much more to say on this topic. It's just something that's came to my attention recently, that this is a way that a lot of people genuinely do live. And it's just kind of crazy, right? It's kind of crazy. So try and be normal out there, guys. You know, this whole internet craze of self-improvement. I understand why it's working. It's because a lot of young men do have no meaning, no purpose. They're very isolated, lonely. They don't have girlfriends. They don't have social connections, and that's understandable, right? But look, just take a minute to breathe. Take a minute to actually try and get some meaningful value in life. And you do that, first of all, by having a normal life to begin with. I don't know, guys. It's just a crazy little topic. Just a video topic, right? But that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you soon. Goodbye.